Okay, hi everyone. Welcome to the AuthorTube Writing Conference 2024. I'm Anita Stewart, also known as AF Stewart, and I'm here to talk to you about Lost in Genre: How Authors Need to Target Their Readers. And basically, I'm going to give you some tips and tricks on how to incorporate genre into your marketing. And the most important thing you need to know is that genre is not about authors, it's about readers. Okay, so the first thing we're going to start with, because we got a lot of stuff to go through, so we're going to go through it really rapidly. And I've got some demonstrations later on in the presentation, and fingers crossed that we don't have any tech issues. So here we go. First thing we're going to do is targeting the right readers. Now, step one in this is you have to decide what your main genre is. And when I mean main genre, I'm talking about the genre you- like horror, like romance, like sci-fi, the ones that are at the top that aren't the subgenres. That's what you have to figure out in your first step when you're thinking about marketing. What is your main genre? Doesn't matter if you've got subgenres. It doesn't matter if you've got little niche areas you can stick it in. First thing you want to do is figure out which main genre your book fits in best. Step two, that is when you're going to find out where your tropes are. So you've decided you're writing a fantasy. And so now you have to decide, what tropes are you using? Is it a dragon fantasy? Is it a vampire fantasy? Is it a Regency fantasy? Is it a romance fantasy? So that's step two. And once you figured that out, you go on to step three, and you figure out what the main trope is. Now you've got your dragons, that's a good start. You've got your romance, that's a good start. But what is the other trope? What is your theme trope? Is it chosen one? Is it enemies to lovers if it's a romance? Is it portal magic? And so once you have all that information, you need to write all this stuff down so you know what it is, so you know how to target your marketing. Now, the next step after that is narrowing your genre. And this is where you're going to get into subgenres. Like for romance, is it historical? Is it contemporary? Is it paranormal? Is it sweet or heat? Horror, is it body horror, gothic, eldritch, psychological, supernatural? Who knows? Mystery, cozy, crime, amateur, noir, detective, forensic? Historical, what era? Is it Victorian? Is it medieval? Is it classic? Is it roaring 20s? Fantasy, is it urban, epic, low, cozy, grimdark, romantasy? Sci-fi, is it space opera, alien invasion, dystopian, cyberpunk, military, robots? And yes, that's a lot, I know. But this is where the research comes in. Yes, the dreaded research into marketing. You're going to have to Google this stuff, baby. So you need to take all the information that you figured out in steps 1, 2, 3, and then you're going to have to research those secondary genres to see how all your tropes fit into them best. Which tropes that you have in your book fit into what subgenres best. Like for instance, if you have the chosen one trope, you're probably going to be an epic fantasy. If you've got the portal magic, then you're going to be a portal fantasy. If you've got a romantic subplot in your fantasy, you're going to be a romantasy. So that's going to take some time, and that's going to take some research. And once you have, and you may actually find more than one subgenre that you might fit into. So you're going to have to make a list of all of this stuff and write it down and keep it in a handy little folder or document or whatever you're going to use for it, so you can refer back to it when you're marketing, because a lot of this stuff is going to be useful when you're doing graphics or when you're doing ads or when you're doing, engagement copy or writing newsletters. So you want to keep it all written down and handy. And so, and once you've pointed that main subgenre, you want to make sure this is what you're going to be your main targeting for your readers, because you can target the main genres, but you're going to be throwing it's like you're going to be throwing spaghetti at the wall, like Margaret said. Um, but so what you want to do is you want to target your subgenres in your marketing. And the third thing you have to pay attention to when you're figuring out your subgenres is your niche subgenres. Now, don't discount the niche subgenres. They might be small for the sales, but you never know when they're going to blow up. Because like last year, not too many people, or a couple of years ago, not too many people had heard of the romantasy subgenre. But now it's the biggest thing in the book world. And then the same with lit RPG. It wasn't really a big thing a few years ago, but now it's a fully blown subgenre. So don't discount the niche genres because you never know when they'll blow up, and they tend to have very loyal readers as well. So if you want to target the niche genres as well as all the main stuff. And some niche genres like that, like the steampunk, the punk genres, a lot of them are niche, like clock punk, western punk, stuff like that. You've also got niche genres like folk horror if you're doing horror, and you've got gas lamp fantasy as well, which is sort of historical era meets fantasy. And again, if you think that your book might fit into a niche genre, do your research, do your Googling. You can find a lot of sites on genres and subgenres, and you can just sort through them. I mean, it takes a little time, it takes a little while, but it happens. Okay. And if you're having trouble with that, you can, like I said, you can do your research. But one of the best tools I've found for doing the research is, and I'm going to get this up and get it screenshotted here, if I can get it screenshotted properly. There we go. And this is what I use to find my categories and to find my genres. It is Publisher Rocket. So we're just going to do a little demonstration here on how to use Publisher Rocket. Now, this is a paid service. It is a one and done paid service, like it's not a subscription service. And I find it's well worth the money. I'm going to show you other things you can use to find genres and categories for your books, for your marketing as well. But we're going to start with Publisher Rocket here. So now I'm going to start with the one I'm in, which is science fiction and fantasy. So you just check it out. And then you're going to get a list of all the nice Amazon categories here. But all these categories are genres. This is what you're targeting, right? This is all you're targeting. You've got science fiction and fantasy, cyberpunk, which is this one. You've got science fiction, first contact, science fiction, genetic engineering. See, this is why I use this, because it's amazing for finding genres and finding readers who might want your books. And so this is fantasy military, fantasy myths and legends, fantasy Arthurian. It's one of the ones I've used. You've got Greek and Roman, Norse and Viking, fantasy new adult and college, fantasy paranormal urban. This is why I love Publisher Rocket. It has so many things, and it's so very, very helpful. And we'll be getting into that a little bit later, because we'll be returning to this to try, and I'll show you how to use the keywords on it. But for now, we are going to stop the sharing. And so that's basically how you go about doing your genre marketing is you figure out all this stuff first with your research and your categories and whatnot. So how do you use it? So basically how you use it is, first of all, you use it on Amazon. You also use it if you're going wide to places like D2D and Kobo and other places like that. They use a slightly different system than Amazon, which I'll get into. But with finding genres, you need to find your genre so you know where to put your book in the categories when you're selling it. There's other uses for it too, which we'll get to later. But right now we're going to talk about methods for finding categories. Now, I just touched on Publisher Rocket there a minute ago, so we'll go back to it. Here we go. And there we go. So there we go. So we'll take a category here and all right, so we go fantasy Arthurian, right? Now, if you click on Publisher Rocket and then you can find your thing right here, Arthurian, it will tell you how many sales you need to get to number 1 in an Amazon category in Arthurian is 119. Sales to number 10 is only 13. And it's right here, and 8% of our, well, no, sorry, that's Christian fantasy. Okay. Yeah, no, I was right. Okay, sorry. Yeah, I guess I need to clean my glasses. So 8% of books in the Arthurian category are from traditional publishers. 86% are in KU, so that means they are indie. So a lot of the Arthurian books are from indies. All right, so and you can click on here for insights, and it will give you a whole bunch of nice little things to use in your marketing. Category growth is up, so that's good. It's got a flat growth, but it's still up. It's got high competition, but also high profit. It also has a high variation. So there's a lot of different subcategories and niche categories you can throw into Arthurian. Like mine is contemporary. You can have historical. You can even have fantasy Arthurian. And yeah, and you've got your average ratings of the books in the category, average age, indie prices, and stuff like that. So there's a lot of good data here that you can use in Publisher Rocket for your books. And let's go back to this. And here is the one that I like because you can click on this and you get a whole lot of nice little keywords you can use, not only for your ads, but for your 7 keywords that you use when you upload your book to Amazon. Now, so that's Publisher Rocket. That's the one I like using the best. Now, as I said, it is a paid service, so not everybody might be able to afford it or use it. So there are other methods to use. Now, the easiest one, and I'm going to put up another screen share here, is just to go on Amazon. This is the easiest one. Just to go on Amazon. Now I'm sharing my book here, and just go there and take a look at what categories a comparable book is in. So say you've written a fairy tale book like mine, and so you're using mine as a comparable book. So you'll see it's in books, fairy tales, that's for the print. You've got fairy tales for Kindle and fairy tale fantasy in Kindle. So we'll click on fairy tale fantasy here, right? And you can see a whole bunch of other books there, and you can check out them as well for categories. And that's an easy way to find your 3 genre categories that you need for uploading. And you can also check out categories over here. So it's also an easy way to get, like, if you want to check out other categories, like fantasy as action adventure, alternate history, all these things. So that's an easy way um, to check out categories without paying for the money. You don't get the insights, but you can get easy way to narrow down your genre. So, and the third way I am going to be showing you here is BookLink. Now, I got this one from Brian Cohen. So shout out to him because and his ad course is coming up in July, and he gives a lot of this genre information and lovely things in that course. So I highly recommend that as well. So here we go, and we're going to share for BookLink. Now this is the page. It's the category page, and basically what you do for this is you take your ASIN or your ISBN and you plug it in here. So I'm using mine, and you can click on this one on the bottom on the secondary box. You can do United States or Canada, United Kingdom or Germany. So we're going to do the States, and then you click Go Find, and then it will come up with my book. See, there it is. And you will find a list of the categories I'm in, the books in short stories, mythology, folk tales, fairy tales, folklore, horror short stories, and a whole bunch of other ones. And you can see, so you can do that for another comparable book. So you find a book that's comparable to the one you're publishing, um, put their ISBN in BookLink, and it will give you a list of their categories. So that's the categories that you'll be using for your book. And this is why you want to know your genre before you start finding your category. Because if you know your genre, then you can go over to Amazon, you can go to Goodreads, and you or go on Google, and you can Google or search um, epic fantasy chosen one and see books, and then find a list of comparable books, get their ISBN, go into BookLink or Publisher Rocket or whatever, and find a list of categories. So, and the one last thing I have here for sharing is the wide categories. Now, this is BISAC. Now, this is way different from Amazon and a little bit easier, to be honest. Um, but I found this very helpful page of a complete BISAC subject headings list in which you can go down, you can find your main genre, which in my case, if I can find it here, you go into fiction. And then from fiction, you go down and you can find blah, 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 blah. Yeah, fantasy, sci-fi, fantasy, horror, and that would be, and then you can find there's fairy tales, folklores, legends and mythology, fantasy, Arthurian. So you can find all the categories in the BISAC. So, and when you're filling in your your metadata for like say drafted digital, you'll need those categories. So, and I have all these things linked in the description below, the links to BookLink, the links to the BISAC list, and also a link to Kindlepreneur where you can find Publisher Rocket. So that's basically how you find and your categories. So now we're going to go on to what what your genre is really good for is you need to know your genre and your subgenres for keywords, because this is what you'll be using in advertising. This is what you'll be using on when you upload your book to Amazon. This is what you'll be using in uh, your book graphics, your posts, your social media stuff. You'll want to know what words you're going to be using, your keywords to target your readers. So, and genres and tropes can be used as keywords, and this is key. So, okay. Little graphic up. There we go. This is key to finding your readers is to use the right sort of um, triggers, I guess would be a good word for your posts, for your ads, for your little 7 boxes in Amazon. So genre tropes and categories can be used as keywords. For example, in my Hayward and Anderson series, some of the keywords I considered using are steampunk detective, supernatural steampunk, uh, Victorian steampunk mystery, paranormal detective mysteries, historic paranormal mysteries, steampunk detective stories, steampunk detective adventure, steampunk adventure, supernatural steampunk mystery, steampunk historical, women's sleuth, steampunk. And yeah, say that a lot, 5 times fast. Um, so, so this is what, and those are some of the things I consider using in my 7 keyword boxes. Now, Kindlepreneur has put out an excellent video on how to find your 7 keywords, and it's a lot of it's genre based, which is why I'm bringing it up in this presentation. And I've linked the Kindlepreneur video down below in the description, as well as an update on some changes that Amazon made regarding their keywords. And again, easiest way to find the keywords is Publisher Rocket. I know I love this thing, and we'll go once more to Publisher Rocket. And instead of category search, we are now going over to keyword search. And we are going to type a keyword here. And let us type the ever-present steampunk, since I was talking about that. And you can also do Kindle only, you can do books, or you can do Audible. So we're going to do Kindle. And so we press Go Get 'em Rocket, and we have, voila, a list of keywords, all sorts of keywords. Now, not all of these keywords are going to be useful for your book, which is why we did all that genre research in steps 1, 2, 3, and the niche and all that sort of thing. Because if your steampunk doesn't have any romance, you're not going to want steampunk romance. And you're not going to want to put something like Steampunk Kindle Unlimited in the 7 keyword box. This is more for an ad keyword or something like that, because putting things like Kindle and Kindle Unlimited in that 7 keyword box is a bit of a no-no these days. So you when you're looking for the 7 keywords for your Amazon upload, you're going to want to stick to genres, you're going to want to stick to tropes, you're going to want to stick to basically descriptive words that describe your book. So, and you can also use tropes and things like vampires or chosen one as your keywords too, and things like that. You can also, if you're looking for categories like I showed you earlier, you can do a manual search of Amazon for your categories as well. And for your keywords. When you're doing a manual search in Amazon for your keywords, here, I will share the screen. Go back to Amazon here and let's go into the search bar and we will click steampunk. And you can see here in the little drop down box, you've got steampunk romance, steampunk fantasy, etc. Not as many as what you get on Kindlepreneur, but you can keep adding, like you could look up steampunk romance and see what comes up. So like that. And that's basically how you do a manual search on Amazon. So now we will go how to use genre for ads. Now, yeah, so genre is very important when you're doing ads because your ads are targeting your readers and your ads are going to cost you money every time someone clicks on it. So basically, you have to target the right readers if you want to make sure you don't spend too much. So this is why when you're doing your ad copy, you want to know what your genre is. You might want to use some of those genre tropes, those genre like, for instance, if you're writing a fantasy book with dragons, you could say your ad copy would most likely have the word dragons in it. Um, and when you're doing a keyword ad, something you'd want to put like a lot of genre things in it, like dragons and fantasy, epic fantasy, um, and chosen one or whatever the keywords you found are. And again, you can find your keywords on Publisher Rocket, but you can also go over to Goodreads, because I mean, with keywords and ads, you can target actual books with ad keywords. So you can go to Goodreads and find a list that's epic fantasy, and you can take those titles and those authors and use them as keywords. And if you know your genre, you know your subgenre, you can really dive down for your keywords on that by doing a manual search, or you could use, as I do, Publisher Rocket. But for keywords, when you need a lot of them, I do the Goodreads search, and there are a couple of data scrapers you can get for browser extensions as well, that you can scrape Goodreads and other sites like that for titles and things. Makes it a little easier. So and you also need to know your genre when you're targeting genre promos. Now, I'm going to pick on romance readers here a little bit, so I apologize. But I have a pet peeve about people applying to group promos from the wrong genre. Like, I've done a few horror promos. Um, and I have had romance authors apply to a horror promo with their books. Now, granted, most of them have been paranormal romance authors, but it shows a clear lack of understanding of what their genre is that they have applied to a horror promo. Because horror fans are not going to want a paranormal romance in their horror promo. Okay. So if you are a paranormal romance author out there, don't apply to horror promos. It's just not going to work. And I've actually had one that was a contemporary romance author applied to a horror promo. I'm still trying to wrap my head around that one. But yeah, so that is the end of my picking on romance authors. So make sure, this is why you make sure you know what genre your book is and what you're targeting, because you need to get in the right promo to reach the right readers. And I would also recommend genre targeted promos um, over multi-genre promos. A lot of multi-genre promos aren't going to work as well. Now, there are a few exceptions because some genres work better together, like sci-fi and fantasy or mystery and thriller. And sometimes you get all genre promos that are based on a theme, which can sometimes work, but I generally recommend using targeted genre promos as your best bet. Um, okay, so now we're going to go back to my brand here. Oops, there we go. And we are going to go into why genre is important for covers. Now, as you can see on this little slide here, we've got the first cover, The Mystery of Jade Manor. It's not mysterious at all. It's in the second cover, you've got The Mystery of Jade Manor, but it looks more romance than mystery. And on the third one, you can clearly see this is a mystery. You've got a detective, a magnifying glass, and a spooky house. Now, I'm going to show you three covers now. They all use the same background, and the only thing that's going to be different about them is the house and the font. And I'm going to show you the difference between them and why covers are important to be genre specific. So, okay, this one is clearly a horror cover. It's got a nice horror font, it's got a creepy old house, and it's got a nice green background. Now, this is the same background, the same creepy background, but the house is different, the font is different. It is no longer a horror cover. It is far more like a fantasy or fairy tale cover. And this one, you've still got the same background. Colors changed a little bit. You've got the fancy font. You've got a way different house. And this one comes across more as a suspense, uh, maybe even a romance, like a romance thriller. So you can see the difference there. Now, in this one, it's the exact same cover background, exact same font, but the figures are different now. Now watch the difference and how it changes the genre. So this one, obviously a crime thriller or some kind of murder mystery. Now with this one, same background, same font, but the figure's different, and now you suddenly get a summer romance, maybe a romantic suspense book. So that's why you have to pay attention to your covers when you're doing your covers. Pay attention to the genre and what your cover is showing, because that is your first impression to your reader. And if your reader gets the wrong first impression, they're probably not going to buy the book, or they're going to be disappointed in reading the book. Because if they buy it on the face of a cover that looks like a fairy tale romance, and your cover is a mystery, I mean, your book is a mystery, then they're going to be disappointed, and they're probably going to leave you a bad review. So, and you want to do the same thing when you're writing your blurb. You want to make sure your blurb is very genre specific, very filled with your trope words, with your genre specific things that people like. So if you want a romance like enemies to lovers, you're going to want to build up the conflict between the main characters in your blurb. You're going to if you got a dragon specific book, you want to really pump up the dragons because dragons sell anything. You know, so that's where you wanted to target with your covers. Now, now I'm going to talk a little bit about finding your perfect reader. Now, I have a downloadable worksheet in the description on Ideal Reader. And now, finding your perfect reader, the worksheet isn't necessarily genre specific. There's a lot of stuff covered in that worksheet that isn't genre specific, like websites and where they hang out and stuff. It's pretty self-explanatory, but you need to know. Not only do you need to know what kind of genre your reader is looking for, but you need to know where to find your reader as well. And that's why I've included the Ideal Reader worksheet, because it'll help you kind of narrow down what kind of reader you're looking for, where to find it, and so you can target your marketing. So, so finding your perfect reader is in essence figuring out your target archetype. This isn't about it's like taking, like, say, who is going to want to buy your book? If it's a romance book, then your target audience is probably going to be women. I mean, you may get some guys reading it too, but it's probably going to be women. So, and if it's a YA romance, you're probably going to want to target the younger audience, and you may get some older older audience, females as well. So you may want to think about doing two different genre promos. One that's a little more targeted to younger readers, maybe say on TikTok, and one that's targeted to a little older female audience, say maybe on Facebook. So, and you're going to want to target, what genre it is as well. Anyway, so you can download the worksheet for free off my Ko-fi page, and links are in the description. Anyway, and so there's that. So now I'm going to open it up to questions. So let's see if there's any questions. Any questions? Okay. So is Publisher Rocket easy to learn? Yes, it is very easy to learn. It's basically a search engine is what it is. There's no real learning curve. It's just basically a search engine, and you can actually click out from Publisher Rocket onto Amazon to to um, to look at, like, with your when you're doing the comp books. You can go and check out the books on Amazon from Publisher Rocket, so to see if they are a good fit or not, which I like. Yes, if you are a cross genre writer, yes, you can use these suggestions effectively. With mashups, you may want to do two separate, like, campaigns. It honestly depends on the mashup. Like, some I have a lot of mashups. Like, for instance, I was talking about my Hayward and Anderson series, and that particular series is paranormal detective. It's kind of alternate history steampunk, and it's also a female detective, and so it's historical. So there's a lot of genres in that. So um I sort of honed in on the detective aspect of it as sort of the main genre, because that's it's basically a mystery is what it is. It's a historical mystery series. So that's what I honed in on. But you can also do you can also so that's my main focus is historical mystery, occult mystery, paranormal mystery. But I also do the steampunk aspect a little bit, like the alternate histories as well. So you can do, like, multiple campaigns if you have mashups, and just you want to focus on one mostly, but you want to do little like side campaigns here and there and see how they go. If it clicks more in one genre than the other, then you might want to focus on one genre over the other if you're doing mashups and cross genre. So you might want to do, like, say, some test marketing first before you decide. Especially if you're doing pre-marketing, the test marketing is very helpful when you're doing, like, pre-marketing before the book comes out. So if you're getting a lot more engagement with, like, say, if I was doing the Hayward and Anderson, if you do get a lot more engagement doing the steampunk than the paranormal detective, then I might want to consider focusing on the steampunk. So test marketing can help when you're doing cross genre. Okay, looking for more questions here. I'm looking for questions. Yeah, okay. Okay. Still scroll. Okay. Question. We found a question. Oh yeah. Oh, okay. We did that question. All right. All right. Question. Oh, whoops. That's not the question. Where did it go? There we go. Yeah. Okay. Um, best place to start. Best place to start is to write the book, but um, but the best place just to start is to figure out the main genre. Start from your main genre because that's like the main branch of a family. That's the main branch of your genre family tree. And then from there you spread out to your subgenres, to your niche genres, and put it all. But see, the thing is, a lot of this information, like all this genre information, you can use it in various different marketing things. You can use some of it in your ad copy. You can use some of it in your book graphics, and you can use some of it. And you want to be very familiar with your genres and your tropes and the things you want to put across to your reader. Because when you're talking to your cover artist, you really want to know that. So the cover artist has a good idea of what kind of a representation would work best for your book. Because the cover, I found a lot of authors who don't have a lot of art experience. They don't understand. They think they just have to put everything on the cover, that the cover has to be a scene, but a cover actually is more of a representative of your genre. It can be very That's why you're seeing a lot of like flower covers, or you're seeing covers with objects on them a lot these days, especially with the romantasy genre, because it doesn't necessarily have to be a direct scene from your book. Like my Fairy Tales and Nightmares book, it's got like a Red Riding Hood figure on it, and it's got like this big magic portal. None of that is a direct scene from my book, but it sort of conveys this dark, magical, creepy feel that the book has. Okay, another question. No, I generally let Amazon do that. Do you place the reading length category in your category? I generally let Amazon do that one. I might do that for like ad keywords because that can be effective in keyword ads on Amazon. But for like say the genre boxes or the categories on Amazon, I generally let Amazon decide that because they will if they decide to. Um, so yeah, I generally try and do the three categories on Amazon for genre only. Okay, this one's a good question. What is the difference between supernatural, fantasy, and paranormal? Okay, fantasy is the easiest one. Fantasy's the thing with the elves and the dragons and the vampires and the urban fantasy things. Supernatural and paranormal are kind of interchangeable, but not quite. Supernatural tends to, especially these days, tends to be more on the horror side. They're ghosts and creepy and monsters and occult things. Paranormal tends to be the vampires and the zombies and the things like that. And a lot of times these days, when you say paranormal, people will automatically soon assume paranormal romance. So if you're writing strict paranormal stuff, you want to be careful using that particular word because you may attract paranormal romance readers. That's why generally, I either say supernatural or I say horror fantasy. I don't use dark fantasy these days either because, again, dark fantasy romance is a thing now. And a lot of people, when you say dark fantasy, will assume dark fantasy romance. So you have to be a little careful when you're using supernatural fantasy and paranormal. Well, fantasy, no, fantasy is pretty simple and straightforward. Fantasy is just elves, dragons, whatever, and all the subgenres of that. But supernatural and paranormal, you have to be a little bit careful depending on what you're writing. Okay. Yeah, we talked about covers a few years ago. You mentioned how green is not a color that sells very well on covers. Is it still the same or has anything changed? Now, I heard this from a traditionally published author, so I'm going to put a caveat. This is probably a traditionally published thing more than an indie thing. And I still say green works great for a horror book or a creepy book, but there are certain colors that go with certain genres, like romance, reds, pinks, all those pretty pastel colors, they work well with romance colors. Horrors, reds, blacks, and I still say green works well with horrors. Sci-fis, you've got um, darker blues, um, sometimes yellow. There are different colors for sci-fi. Blue works well with fantasy as well. So you might actually want to put a little research if you're doing your covers into colors because certain colors work better with certain genres. Okay. And we got another question. My dark fantasy has a romance subplot in the story. Second book leans more into horror, more and cosmic in the third. I'm going darker. Do you think this can be taken well since it's dark fantasy? Um, like I was just saying, yes. First of all, dark fantasy covers a big, big, big thing these days. It can go from horror to romance. And this is why I tend, when I'm writing straight up horror, like with yours, your first book, I mean, I'm going to assume the series has a bit of a romance subplot going all the way through it. And if that's the case, then you're probably fine going with dark fantasy because dark fantasy romance gets really dark from what I've heard. I mean, I haven't read any of those books, to be honest. It's not my cup of tea. But yeah, so it can go very dark in dark fantasy. So yeah, and if your romance is strong enough, then just go with the dark fantasy genre because it's a pretty good genre these days. Actually, witches and elemental and things like that, great keywords. Witches is a great keyword for a lot of genres. It can work in romance, it can work in cozy mystery, it can work in paranormal, urban fantasy, um, and uh, and elements like elemental and and stuff like that. It's so yeah, there's a lot of tropes and subtropes in which fantasies and which supernatural books that can be used for marketing. Yeah, dragon shifters and urban fantasy. Yes, you are going to have to be careful about that one, Shannon, because there are urban fantasy and shifters are pretty much synonymous these days. But yeah, so you're probably going to have to be a little careful when you're using the word shifter, especially because they are a little touchy about that, I tell you. Okay, I think we've come to the end of the questions. If I've missed one, I'm just going to go back through here for a minute. I don't think I missed any questions. If I did, you can pop them back in the bottom of the chat there if I missed you. Anyway, so if there are no more questions, I think we can wrap it up. And I hope you got some information and some out of the presentation. And my technology did not fail me, so I'm happy. Okay, so we'll wrap it up then. Don't see any more questions. And I will just pop in the outro video and I'll see you guys. Oh, almost forgot. I knew there would be something. Never fails. Okay, so don't forget the feedback form to pop over and do your feedback forms and enter the giveaway. I have my book, my ebook. Just a minute. I have my ebook of fairy tales and nightmares in the giveaway, along with some bookmarks and digital poster swag for everybody. So be sure to enter, and I'll see you overall over at happy hour because that's up next. And so, bye for now, everybody.